After 4 days dominated by rain, we were desperate for some sunshine to boost morale. While sheltering in the Forerunner that evening, we came across a phrase in our guidebook that was a beacon of hope. Eventually, we reached a crossing that could only be described as a river. The guide said they had done the crossing before, and without stopping to evaluate the conditions, they pulled into the raging river. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. The land cruiser barely tapped its brakes as it careened into the river.
She's still gonna go.
It's like right in the airbox. By some miracle, no water got into the air intake, and they were pushed to shallower water where they were able to reverse out.
Oh, my heart stopped.
Every one of us was rocked by what could have been a tragic disaster. The driver of the Arctic truck concluded that the widest and presumably the shallowest path was actually perpendicular to the direction the road crosses the river. Against all intuition, their strategy was to start high upstream and aim for the hazardous-looking rocks on the other side. The cruiser was still shaken from their nearly disastrous attempt and deferred to the Arctic truck to try the speculative route. After a short celebration for the Arctic truck, it was our turn to risk it all or turn around. We decided to risk it. With 2 rigs successfully across, the land cruiser made a second attempt. A camaraderie formed between the 3 vehicles. Strangers only minutes ago, we rolled together in a convoy for the last few miles before breaking off to camp. There's nothing more refreshing than taking off a rain jacket after days of wet weather and feeling rays of sunshine gently warming your body. The glacial valley we were in was dotted with volcanic mounds with obvious caves beckoning for a visit. The valley floor was hewn in with trees, a rarity for Iceland. And while it was only late August, the leaves were already turning a golden hue, signaling Iceland's short summer would be over soon. That night, we weren't just celebrating surviving a raging river crossing. There was another very special milestone to mark.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Amanda. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks, babe. Now we get to eat cake, which I'm very excited about.
That night, we went to bed with stomachs filled with cake and hearts filled with a little bit of sunshine. By morning, Thorsmork was showering us in more golden light. This is exactly the type of morning that you imagine when you're at home, dreaming about being on the road. One of those slow, carefree mornings, just savoring a cup of coffee somewhere exotic with nowhere else to be.
For breakfast, we are eating down our fridge, and we are cooking these little mini pizza bites, which have been pretty delicious. As you can see, we are just heating them up here with kind of like a little bit of convection oven style. We're getting close. And the trip is going really nice. This campsite, even though it was a little bit scary getting here, has been amazing. And I slept 9 hours last night, which I haven't done in a little bit. And now we're having pizza bites for breakfast.
After breakfast, we unfurled the awning, opened the tent flaps, and spread out our gear to dry. After a leisurely stroll with our coffee, everything was dry for the first time in days. But we're not ones to stand idle for long, and soon we were back on the road and saying goodbye to this oasis of sunshine on the southern side of Iceland. We let curiosity take the wheel, which led to us hunting for the southernmost point in Iceland.
So we've made it to the very southernmost road in Iceland. So checking off another one of our overland waypoints here. But unfortunately, there's also some kind of bird sanctuary or something, so everybody else in Iceland is here too. So great.
Just a few minutes ago, we were enjoying the blue skies and temperate weather in Thorsmork, but here on the coast, the winds were whipping and the seas were raging. The undulating surf crashed and exploded on the rocks below. The entire landscape had gone monochromatic, elevating the drama of the scene. We were feeling even more thankful that we had risked it the night before so that we could camp at the calm, dry, sunny oasis of Thorsmork.
So what nobody tells you about Iceland is that it gets warmer as the further south you go. So here at the southernmost point, it's very much like the Amalfi Coast in Italy. So you should really check out the southern side and its beautiful weather.
Just up the coast, we found ourselves in another dramatic scene. Perhaps the most famous wreck in all of Iceland, this United States Navy plane crash-landed here in 1973 and has remained ever since. The plane is surrounded by flat black sand in every direction with no signs of civilization to be found. To visit is to step into the isolation and terror of a post-apocalyptic plane crash. We had one more stone to overturn on our circumnavigation of Iceland, the small volcanic island of Vestmannaeyjar. For the third time on this journey, we loaded the Forerunner deep into the belly of a ship and took to the seas. The waters were still rough and churning, and despite the substantial size of the vessel, the boat tossed and turned on the huge waves. During the voyage, we discovered a more southern point within Iceland's borders was accessible here on Vestmannaeyjar. So, we aimed the Forerunner south again to see what we would find.
We caught a ferry like 30 minutes off the mainland of Iceland to Vestmannaeyjar, and we found the southernmost road in Iceland. And it's completely fogged in, there's not a whole lot to see, but we're on like a little volcanic island.
The interaction between the volcano and the island's residents is explored at the Eldheimer Museum. In January of 1973, without warning, the long-dormant volcano on the edge of the town of Vestmannaeyjar began to erupt. The fissure opened up just half a mile from the town center. Authorities moved quickly to evacuate the entire population as lava, ash, and poisonous gases threatened the lives of everyone on the island. About 300 buildings were destroyed by the lava flow, and around 70 homes were buried by ash. The Eldheimer Museum was erected around the excavation site of one of these homes that was buried in the blast. The site is like a modern Pompeii, giving visitors a view into the instant the home's residents evacuated the natural disaster, frozen in time for decades beneath volcanic ash. We had one more stop before heading back to the mainland. To cap off our visit to Vestmannaeyjar, we hunted down a restaurant that was suggested to us during our first days back in Reykjavik. It was a cozy affair at the top of a narrow staircase in a historical building. The food at Slipperin was creative and quintessentially Icelandic, with dishes elevating fish, the keystone of the Vestmannaeyjar economy. While this meal was a celebration of our time in Iceland, it also signaled the beginning of the end for us. We loaded into the ferry again to make our way back to the mainland. As the cliffs outside Vestmannaeyjar's harbor towered over our passage, I soaked up the last thrill from this amazing place, and reflected on what an amazing journey it had been to get here. We had come so far from those first campouts, and making the impossible choice to leave California, in search of the life we wanted to live. We weathered the pain of having a pandemic crush our dream, but never lost hope and never wavered in our commitment to make it happen.
So it's the day before this truck is supposed to start heading towards Portland, Maine, where it's going to be put into a cargo container and shipped over to Iceland. Just pulling out of the neighborhood on the first leg of this epic trip.
We learned to stomach ambiguity and work together through challenges.
It's kind of a shallow amount of documentation here.
Erasing stays and miles between us now.
Alright, we're finally reunited with the Forerunner.
We did it!
As with most things in life, we found that while traveling, you get out what you put in. And we put everything we had into this, and the rewards were immense.
I will be waking up to you. And I'll hold
These 4 weeks in Iceland were the most alive I've ever felt. Iceland had limitless opportunities for exploration and discovery.
How does it feel to be the northernmost person in Iceland right now? It's pretty special.
As the trip was coming to a close, I wasn't feeling pride or satisfaction, or even rested or rejuvenated. I was feeling hungry. Hungry for the next one. Hungry to get out into the world again and push ourselves out of our comfort zone. Hungry to feel vividly alive once again. Looking back on our adventure, it wasn't an epic landscape or a towering waterfall that stood out the most in my mind. It was the people that we met along the way. It warmed my heart to be reminded of all the folks who helped us out, gave us a suggestion, or shared a story and built a bit of human connection with us. There's a recurring theme among travelers about what you could call guardian angels, or people that come out of nowhere when we find ourselves most in need. It's an incredible feeling to be the beneficiary of a complete stranger who owes you nothing. Likewise, it's so fulfilling being in the right place at the right time to be a guardian angel for someone else.
Do you want to ride down?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
In the end, it is the generosity of others that made the biggest impact on me. Through it all, the Forerunner has been our constant companion. It's been our shelter in foul weather and a familiar reassurance when we were far from home. It's taken us places that exceed my wildest dreams. The Forerunner performed flawlessly despite all the punishment we put it through. And it's hard not to be endeared to a machine that worked tirelessly to bring our dreams to life. But with Iceland in the rearview mirror, it's time to start dreaming again. And I can't wait to see the people and the places the Forerunner will introduce us to next.